the March meeting, the Falls of the James Group of Sierra Club. We are recording our meeting tonight, as we always do, so that these can be a resource for the future. We ask that, well, you're welcome tonight, and hello, Linda, welcome to you. Please go ahead and put questions you might have into the chat as Duron is speaking or afterwards, and we will try to get to everyone's questions. My name is Joe Brancoli. I'm the chair of the Falls of the James Group. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I live in Richmond, Virginia, in the city of Richmond. The Falls of the James Group, as you may know, stretches from Charles City County in the east to Powhatan in the west, up to Hanover, and down to the North Carolina state line. We're glad to have you with us tonight, wherever you are, and joining us for this virtual meeting. As is our practice with our virtual meetings, we like to get right to the speakers. Very, very happy tonight to have as our speaker Duron Chavis. He is an urban farmer and a community activist here in Richmond, and he was a recipient of our Green Giant Award just last year, was with us in December for that. We are so happy to have him back. In the past decade, Duron has initiated social justice-minded farmers markets, urban gardens. He has helped to create farms, orchards, and vineyards. He was an inaugural member of the Citizens Advisory Board for the Office of Community Wealth Building in the city of Richmond. And he has worked at the Black History Museum and Cultural Center of Virginia, where he founded the Happily Natural Day Festival. Also in his background is time at Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden. And one of the latest projects he has worked on is the creation of the Sankofa Community Orchard on Reedy Creek in South Richmond. We are very excited, as I said earlier, to have Duron Chavis with us tonight. Let's give him a warm welcome and let him take it away.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Princess James. I'm thankful for Siobhan. I appreciate all of you all for inviting me to share this evening. So we only got 30 minutes, so I'm going to try to run through the what and why for the work that we do here in the Richmond region. Thank you so much for the brief biography or just a brief introduction, because I don't have to spend a lot of time on who I am. But I entitled this presentation Radical Agriculture. The reason being radical is a term that a lot of people are afraid of right now. They feel a little bit apprehensive towards anything being radical, but I try to remind people that radical means getting to the root of the issue. We take this from the Merriam-Webster definition as a meaning of or pertaining to the root. Our context today is addressing root causes of social inequity through agriculture, right? Joe talked about the origins of our work being at the Black History Museum and Cultural Center in Virginia. So I would hope that folks could kind of understand that our work is framed through a lens of racial justice. Our origin story starts around telling the story of people of African ancestry, not only in the city of Richmond, but explicitly starting prior to slavery. We kind of, I don't like to start our story with just enslavement. Our narrative as people of African ancestry draws back before that. And that's the reason why we started Happily Natural Day, to try to explain and lift up the importance of loving ourselves as people of African ancestry. And it's out of that work that we were introduced to urban agriculture, to agriculture period, by Black farmers and et cetera. But my work uh, is framed in the context of being a Black man from the city of Southside. I was raised in Richmond, Virginia. I'm in Richmond, as you may or may not know. It's only 60 square miles, and it's almost half African American. But 26% of the city is in poverty. And I grew up smack dab in the middle of that on South Richmond. I grew up off of Broad Rock Boulevard. And for those who may be familiar with the history of the city, I grew up in a part of the city that was annexed by the city of Richmond back in the 70s to dilute Black political power in the city, right? So I grew up in the part of the city that, because there was a large growing African-American population, the oligarchy at the time decided that they would annex the Bon Air, western south of the James, southwestern part of the James River into the city in order to prohibit Black political leadership from taking predominance in the city. But the story doesn't start there. Of course, Richmond is capital Virginia. And I just referenced this just so you can understand, like, this work for me lives in a greater context than just addressing food deserts or, making sure people have access to healthy food. Again, we're trying to tackle root causes and upend power dynamics that exist as a result of a long history of inequity in our country. It starts in Virginia, where things, I like to say, ground zero. Jamestown is where, colonists began their narrative as far as the American version of this story. 20 some odd Africans sold as indentured servants in the city. But, for the sake of our conversation, we're not going to go all into the depths of that story. We'll just start with the 1950s. These redlining maps are very important to me and very important to this work, because it helps us define, like, where the most disadvantaged communities are in the city. For those who are not aware, redlining was the process of denying access to mortgages and finances on the basis of race that was done in the 1950s, not only in Richmond, Virginia, but all across the country. Major metropolitan cities all experienced this phenomenon where, irrespective of the quality of the homes in the neighborhood, the Federal Housing Administration's Homeowners Loan Corporation graded neighborhoods and assessed their finance worthiness, right? And here in the city, it was no exception. I took the liberty of adding a bunch of dots, a dot map, because I'm an ArcGIS fan. As a result of this work, I got really, I'm hype about data. These dots represent the vacant and tax delinquent properties that exist in the city of Richmond. So a direct correlation can be made from the area that points to the neighborhoods that were disenfranchised on the basis of race from financing and home financing back in the 50s to today, where those same neighborhoods have a preponderance of vacant and blighted properties. And that is kind of where we, get the engines turning. This is also a map of the lack of access to healthy food in the city. So I've used these two maps to help you also understand these are the phenomenon that we're dealing with. The light green highlights are the areas that have limited access to healthy food, and the blue areas are the areas where there's a lot of or more access to healthy food. This next map helps you to also understand the intersectional inequities that our communities, that are formerly redlined, experience. This is a map of heat vulnerability. This map documents the areas of the city where it's literally 10 degrees hotter on the hottest day. And again, this map is almost matching the red line maps, the redlining maps that I showed earlier. And then lastly, this map here, which also documents the evictions that have occurred in large amount in the same areas that were formerly redlined in the city. So these stifling amounts of inequity, heat vulnerability, lack of access to healthy food, a preponderance of vacant and blighted property, people are being evicted in mass. These are the realities that we find ourselves in here in the city, that we as activists, community people, and myself as a farmer, this is what we're up against, right? This is the work. So it's not just about food, it's all of these things at the same time. This is Richmond, Virginia, the former capital of the Confederacy. I like to highlight that even though we've taken down the monuments, the scars of these inequities are present and clear right in front of our face every day, despite the cosmetic facelift that we just got with the taking down of these statues, right? Like that, this is the deeper work that needs to occur that we're faced with. So my work starts with Happily Natural Day, festival dedicated to lifting up positive images and ideas around African identity as a result of these living in a system that has created and perpetuated a hierarchy of human value. We created an event annual on, in the summer that would bring Black people together and other people of color to celebrate their identity in the face of that, right? Loving ourselves, and despite, the messages saying that, you're at the bottom rung of the ladder, right? In this process of starting the festival, I met African American farmers, people who've been growing food for generations, right? My legacy, the legacy of farming for me as a young man, I'm only 41. I started activist work at the age of like 22. Started farming at the age of 30, right? So it was these older men that pulled me to the side and said, hey man, we love it that you're doing this festival, but it's important that you start talking about where food comes from, right? And one of my OGs, or elders, I should say, Baba Oduno Tariq, was a Garveyite, and I was a member of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, founded by Marcus Mosiah Garvey, in my early 20s. And I met these people, traveling up and down the East Coast, and they helped inform our practice. So today, this work starts for me, in getting into farming starts for me as the developer of a pop-up farmers market. I would go out every Saturday and market vegetables from these Black farmers in formerly redline neighborhoods, right? So, and that started in 2008. Every Saturday from 2008 to like 2013, 14, I would basically market vegetables to community members who, didn't have a grocery store in their neighborhood. And in that process, sitting with the farmers every Saturday, like waiting for people to pick up their produce and like, talking to folks that were picking up their produce and things like that. We used to have this program called 20 for 20, where we would sell 20 pounds of produce for $20, right? And we accepted SNAP and all that type of stuff. But it was, hot summer days, and these the brothers would share with me like why it was important to grow food, right? Why it was more important to grow peppers and tomatoes in our front yards than grass, right? What was the difference between a GMO crop and a hybrid and heirloom? Or why would we plant during the full moon? And what their experiences were as farmers, or even the discrimination that farmers had faced from the USDA and how folks had lost their land. All that stuff was being seeded into me, in my late 20s while we were marketing these vegetables. And it was in 2012 that we started our first community garden. And the reason why it became important for us to do that was, well, I started to realize that these men were old enough to be my grandfather. And I was like, well, if something happens to them, right, where does this work go? Like, we can't sell a lick of vegetables if we don't have a farmer. So I moved into a neighborhood, Woodland Heights, where we developed McDonough Community Garden, which still exists to this day. Is a really amazing space that we began in 2000. And actually, this is our 10-year anniversary. The 10th year anniversary of McDonough is 2022. Wow, May, in this May. Anyway, as we started the garden, it became important to kind of find more land, right? So I partnered up with a really good friend of mine, John F. Lewis, who recently passed away. John Lewis was an amazing force. He worked at Richmond Behavioral Health Authority as a prevention specialist. And this guy was, he was rocking and rolling. He had school garden at G.H. Reed. They had just started this farm here called Jerusalem Connection that's pictured in this slide. And it was there where I was like, yo, all right, we started collaborating instead of competing, which is, a lot of times we see that in nonprofit circles. I remember we met at a church event for Will Allen, another veteran voice of urban agriculture was brought here to the city. And I met him in line. We were getting our, how they have those lines for food and everybody's like standing next to each other, whatever. It's like a little buffet style. Man, and he asked me, had I applied for a grant? And I was like, yeah, I applied for that grant. He's like, yeah, he applied too. And in that moment, I was like, Dad, I'm over here competing against this man for funding when we could be working together. And that was at that moment that we decided to team up, and we started working on so many other things, but I don't want to get on a tangent. God rest the soul of John F. Lewis. He is amazing. And if you don't know him, man, I wish you could have met him. So after working with Renew and working with John, during that time I was working at Department of Social Services. So I was the guy that would interview you if you wanted to get food stamps or Medicaid. So my day-to-day was interfacing with the same populations that have been facing these inequities on a day-to-day basis. So my reality was, I wake up, I go to work, and there's like 100 people in the waiting room waiting for food stamps. Like, this is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday of every week. And, it started to like really become important for me to think of, like, how do we shift this reality? While we're doing this work with the urban ag, I was trying to blend the two, but it wasn't working out. At the time, this stuff was really, I guess, ahead of its time for the city. We were just kind of like cracking the eggs. The food policy task force, which I was on, had just got started in like 2011, 2012. But anyway, I ended up going to a conference, meeting Dr. Marcus Coleman from Virginia State University, where I introduced myself, told him about what we were doing, and he was impressed and hired me as the project director for the Harding Street Urban Ag Center, which is, he had got $1 million grant, $1.5 million from the USDA, NIFA, National Institute for Food and Agriculture, to develop an indoor sustainable food system. We transformed a rec center into an indoor farm in the heart of Petersburg, Virginia. And from there, went over to Lewis Ginner, and things didn't go as well. COVID happened, we all got laid off. But I took my last check at Lewis Ginner and invested it into turning Happily Natural Day into a nonprofit. And in that moment, May 2020 is when my life transformed and has been totally a faith journey an amazing, just, I mean, wow. I could just say it's like lightning struck, right? I thought lightning struck when I started my first garden, but lightning really struck when COVID hit. And we had to jump out here and figure out how we were going to do this work without working for anybody or working for ourselves solely. As a result of being laid off, we decided to continue doing the work that we were doing at Lewis Ginner. We were charged with developing public green space while serving as community engagement manager at Lewis Ginner. So we decided, okay, well, since that job is gone, we're going to continue raising money, and started delivering raised beds to community members throughout the Richmond region. I mean, as far away as Montpelier. I was driving out. We have raised beds going out to Charles City, to Petersburg, all across Henrico, Chesterfield, Chester, Richmond. You know, at the end of the day, we delivered over 400 raised beds. And in the same breath, we got the attention of the Institute for Contemporary Art, who asked us to develop a demonstration garden at the corner of Broad and Belvedere, which we call Black Space Matters. The Black Space Matters exhibit was designed to show what you can do on a vacant, blighted plot, a vacant lot in the middle of the city. So 30 raised beds, 30 trees, shade structures, murals, all that went in on this corner. We also did a show, a little web episode called Black Space Matters, where we interviewed Black people who are stewards of open outdoor green space and etc., which season 2 is opening this Friday. I'll put a link in the chat. But as a result of that exhibit, the exhibit was short-lived. It was only going to be there for, I guess, like 8 months, but it ended up being there for almost a year. Once the exhibit closed, we were given all the material that went in to the exhibit, and we took everything. I'm talking raised beds, perennial plants, trees, you know, every piece of wood, the shade structure, you know, everything we took down and transported it to a vacant 2-acre plot of land on South Side, 309 Covington Road, which we started the term, we gave the name Sankofa Community Orchard. This space borders up on Reedy Creek. It's an amazing plot of land, but that 30 trees that we first planted turned into 50, and then turned into 80, and then it turned into 100. It was just, people just started showing up with resources on this historically disadvantaged or benignly neglected part of the city, right off of Midlothian Turnpike. Right now, we have close to a dozen murals, a shed that is solar powered, a shade structure that houses an outdoor kitchen, over 1,000 gallons worth of rainwater catchment system, a permeable pathway that borders the space, drip irrigation, and just, I mean, it's amazing. And it's been a humbling experience to work with community in the development of this space. This is one of the largest urban farm green spaces in the city. I would say it's probably, it is actually the largest as far as 2 acres is concerned. Maybe only parallel will be like North Shalom Farms North Side location. So this is where the work is sitting right now. Where are we going from here, though, is important, and I want to make sure I get this in here in the last couple minutes that I have to share. Concurrent with this work of urban farming that we do training of community members, we do events, dinners, and we still do the Happily Natural Festival. And as things begin to, you know, open back up as a result of COVID kind of being on the, I guess, decline, I don't know, I guess that's the word I'm hearing right now. We'll be back to, you know, hopefully in-person events, especially since we're outdoors. But in tandem to all of these community programming, our macro work is still about Black liberation. How do we secure land for ecological restoration? How do we address affordable housing? How do we do economic development for Black communities using agriculture as a core tenet? So our next project that's really kind of a big vision effort that we're working towards is in collaboration with the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust, which I've served as a board member, and another organization, Girls for Change, where we're transforming 9 acres of land on the south side of Richmond into an agrihood, which is an agricultural development, which is basically a neighborhood development with urban farm at its center as an amenity of the neighborhood. Sort of like you would pay a HOA fee for open green space, or like for, you know, somebody to do the landscaping. The farm presents itself as one of those amenities, just like you might have a pool or something like that. And in this case, we do have there's Chickahominy Farms in Hanover. But the difference between this and that is that this effort is solely focused on affordable housing, explicitly for communities of color. Like, our goal is to try to create a space that creates a pipeline for African American girls to be able to access home ownership, while at the same time that community, the farm produces food where residents of the neighborhood get a share weekly of produce from the farm. And there's a community space and event space and all the different types of things embedded inside of it. So we're really excited about this. This is a schematic or the conceptual master plan that just came down from Timmons Group a couple of weeks ago. We got this, and so now we're working on raising the money for the construction plans. And this is a really organic effort because the land trust, they're going to build houses regardless, right? That's their charge. We are on a farm, that's our charge. And Girls for Change is going to work for girls, you know, young African-American girls. That's their charge. But we decided that we're going to do all the things that we were already going to do, just do them together. And we were able to find a piece of property to do that on. So this is a really fascinating effort. I'm really excited about it. And in addition to that, we're also, I'm also on the board for the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons. Again, I have to reiterate, land is imperative. This is the kind of like disparity, a systemic disparity. Almost 96, 97% of rural land is owned by people of European ancestry, right? In this country. Like, this is staggering that, you know, that one ethnicity would have such a high proportion of land ownership in this country with how diverse our country is. So our work with the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons is to change that, right? And to decommodify land and make it available for the folks that have been marginalized in this country as a result of its history of perpetuating this hierarchy of human value. So the Central Virginia Agrarian Commons, we got 80 acres of land that's being donated from a resident of Amelia County, dropping 80 acres explicitly into the land trust to turn it into homes and homesteads explicitly for community members of color, right? This is the type of reparative justice that, you know, is happening in our ecosystem right now, and I'm just happy to be a part of it. So I'm going to leave you all with two things. You know, for me, as an urban agriculturalist, I do this work, you know, for the sake of food justice and for the sake of climate justice. You know, these are two realities that are pressing upon us, and that, depending upon where you live or where what your zip code is and what your ethnicity is, they might be hitting you harder, faster, right? We know that climate change is affecting people of color and neighborhoods and communities that have been traditionally marginalized faster. And of course, you know, those same neighborhoods are also lacking in access to healthy food. So for me, this work is about centering those who are most marginalized and most affected by inequity. And for me, I call this Black liberation work. Explicitly, I call it Black liberation work because it's about ending the premature death of Black people. This is what's happening in our community. And this quote by Assata Shakur is what lifts me up every day. It's and the quote goes, "It's our duty to fight for our freedom. It's our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other, and we have nothing to lose but our chains." That's at the end of the day, for me, I get up every day to do this because, I mean, the opposite of it is just waiting and hoping that somehow, some way, these inequities will slowly fade away. And we know that that's not going to happen. You got to get up and get out and get something if you want something to happen, right? So I'm heavily inspired by that, and yeah, I'm just going to leave you with this slide image from George Washington Carver at Sankofa for Community Orchard, and say thank you for the opportunity to share. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all out here in the world as we do this work. Yeah, I think there's some questions. I guess we'll take some questions if there's time for that.
Yes, there is indeed time. And basically, Siobhan has asked a question that is a great one to start with, I think. How can we as individuals and as the Falls of the James group support the work that you have described to us tonight?
So I'm a really big proponent of talking about systemic stuff, right? I feel like it's one thing to be like, yeah, man, you can support our organization because we need money, which is the truth. That is a true statement. We need money, right? But the bigger kind of conversation is like, I follow like the teaching. I guess like one of the things that have become clear to me is that it's easy for me to to tell you to do a thing, right? To say, okay, well, I need volunteers to do this or that or a third. But what I'm more focused on is like, what is it that makes you come alive, right? What excites you? What is it about, you know what I mean, your life or this world that gets you excited? What do you wake up in the middle of the night and can't go to sleep about, right? And if it's community facing, like, let's do that together, right? I feel like whatever makes you come alive, whatever it is you're passionate about, that there's room for that in this alternative world, this new system that we're creating. I feel like the system that we're living in is burning and is crumbling around us. We can act naive about it as much as we want, but I mean, I don't know how many of you have been to the grocery store lately, but I mean, the last 2 years have been a little bit challenging in terms of supply chains, and now we're at war, and it's gas prices, and the home prices are through the roof. All this stuff yeah. All right, I'm not gonna get on my soapbox about that. I just want you to feel comfortable to know that I see what you see, that this thing is hitting the fan, right? And in that hitting of the fan, the resiliency of our community is tied into people being passionate about change. But I can't tell you what to be passionate about. I can only try to connect with you what I'm passionate about, and like, let's build a bridge and like do those things that we're passionate about together. Let's dance together and create a new world together. So, whatever it is that you're hype about, like, we need it. Like, you're a carpenter, you make soap, you know what I mean? You like to cook. Like, what? Are you an accountant? Some people are passionate about math. Like, what is it that you're hype about? Let's do that together, because we're gonna need all of it as this thing takes shape.
Yes, beautifully said. Thank you. A specific question from Kate McClory about the Happily Natural Festival. Where and when does that happen?
So we do the Happily Natural Day Festival at our 5th District mini farm. It's on Southside on Bainbridge. It's usually it's going to be the last Saturday in August, which is we usually do it every year, the last Saturday in August. So I was relieved to see, that, this COVID stuff, like the CDC is changing its recommendations, but I'm still kind of like, I think I think I've been traumatized. I'll say it. 2 years in the pandemic, I don't even trust that it's gone. I'm like, I'm like, you sure? You sure it's good? Are you positive? Yeah, I mean, I'm still wearing my mask, baby. I had it, so I don't know. I mean, so we're hopefully gonna be back with the festival this summer. You know, just keeping our fingers crossed and staying precautious because you know you never know. It might be a new variant that pops up, and then we're right back smack in the middle of this thing. So I'm just trying to stay alert, stay open, and stay focused. You know, if all goes well, in the most optimistic voice, it's going to be the last Saturday of August of 2022.
Hey,
Great.
Duron, could I ask you to stop sharing your screen so we can see the big view? Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
There you go. Okay, thanks.
We have a lot of folks who are just lifting up feelings that say this, what you have communicated gives hope for the future, inspirational work. A question from Amy, as someone who works in Petersburg on food access issues, running a mobile market, what do you feel would create the biggest impact immediately in Petersburg? Would that be community and common gardens, or getting beds and seeds to individuals to grow their own food?
So it's dope that you asked this, and I appreciate it because just yesterday we were talking about food systems, right? And the food system, you know, there's production, aggregation, distribution, processing, you know, waste management. And from my vantage point, you know, having worked in Petersburg, I think there's a really amazing work that's happening. The folks at PHOPS, the collaborations with the Harding Street Urban Ag Center, you know, the HCAT, you know, the stuff that's happening at the library. I mean, I saw a farmer's market in the library, which I thought was just, I mean, amazingly brilliant, right? But I feel like there's high level of importance for development of each of the aspects of the food system that makes it even more resilient, right? So the aggregation stuff that was happening at the Harding Street indoor farm. I mean, when we built that, when we designed the Harding Street space, and we came up with the cutting the dock door in the side of the building, and you know, putting the commercial kitchen in the back of one of those rooms, and the refrigeration space. Nobody knew that there was going to be a pandemic, and all that stuff was going to be uber necessary, right? So we need more of that stuff now, right? And this, you know, support for community members to engage in business, you know, in those spaces. So if there's a way to help create even more infrastructure for folks to farm, you know, more infrastructure or access to land for folks to farm, more infrastructure for the processing of that food to happen, value added stuff, not just like farmers market stuff, but like cold storage and other locations. That's the type of stuff that I think is going to really help build like or scale up what's already happening. And I think Petersburg is doing amazing right now. Like the cast of characters are diverse, and there's people that are like focused in their lanes of work. It just needs, you know, just the systems thinking, figuring out what the system looks like as far as production, going to aggregation, going to distribution, you know what I mean, going to processing or value adding of that produce. Like I see people getting jobs. I see entrepreneurs coming out of that, right? Like this is real time happening. I'm sure you have a closer view of it, but I feel like just more investment into the infrastructure for folks to do that stuff is gonna, I think Richmond is gonna be trying to play catch up to Petersburg. I think other cities are gonna be looking at what's happening in Petersburg and being like, wow, these folks on a grassroots level, like identified the problem and then built the infrastructure to address the problem on their own terms, right? In the face of like dilapidation and like, you know, the loss of like major job economy, like they created a new economy around food in the Berg. So yeah, I think it's going great. I'm excited about what's happening, what's going to happen next.
Interesting. Very good to hear that about Petersburg. And Amy, who asked that last question, has a follow-up where she says, that's our market in the library too. And I work with PHOPs, I'm not sure what that is, Amy, but
P hops.
yeah. And I'm so
Yeah.
happy you got to see it. We work out of the Harding Street Ag Center right now, she says.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
it sounds like you're making connection there. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm serious. It's like, wow.
Another question we have is, what do you do to encourage the youth audience to get involved? Are lesson plans in the plan?
So we have a youth farm that we're launching this month actually. The Brook Road Youth Farm. We were able to collaborate with the Gannett Park Presbyterian Church, a local church, granted us a 10-year lease on a half-acre plot of land off of Brook Road. And instead of turning that into a production space, we said we're going to turn it into a youth-led farm. So we have a curriculum. I mean, I designed a curriculum a long time ago when I was at social services, ironically, to try to pitch it. You know, it didn't get picked up, but we're using it now. And so it's teaching urban agriculture, entrepreneurship, and mindfulness, right? And so I'm really excited about it. It's a seasonal thing. So right now we have it designed in 12-week increments. And so, we're more than willing to share curricula that you can use, whether it's STEM or social studies or, what have you. Like there's a lot of different ways to tackle that beast. I feel like it's important to engage youth as, not as like children, not being paternalistic with them. I feel like it's important to engage youth as if they have answers, because they do, and try to hold space for them to iterate those answers, right? So I'm challenging, all of us that do youth development to like look at them not as like, okay, I have the answers as this adult. Like what's coming out of these young people is ridiculously brilliant, right? These young folks have a whole nother lens on this thing. And, it's our job to kind of hold a safe space for them to be engaged. I mean, I think the food conversation for them is like, I've seen the fires light up when they realize that they're in control of this thing. Like if they want to grow food, they can grow food. They want to create a product, they can create a product. If they want to sell compost, they can sell compost. Like it's up to them. And we're like, okay, yeah, we're going to do that. But at the same time, we're also offering stipends too, because we know that reality is like kids need money, and if we can create a scenario where they can learn and also earn, yeah, I'm totally down with that. So I think those are two of the main things. Like if you can create a safe space where you're encouraging the brilliance of these young people and then sewing into them, as a part of their participating in your program, just watch for the fireworks. It's it'll jump off on its own.
Yes, absolutely. I knew more when I was 16 than I do now. I've been trying to catch back up to where I was when I was 16 the rest of my life.
Oh, when I was 16, I thought I was going to be a rapper. We had started a record label and everything. I mean, we were like 16, 17 years old, like Googling. I mean, there was no Google at that time. We were like buying books and like going to DC. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, just channeling that energy. And I was lucky to have older folks around me that were like, yeah, we're going to help nurture this thing. So just being a nurturer, creating a space for these young people is where it's at. We need more of that.
Indeed. A logistical question about Sankofa. How it works. Are there particular work days, particular groups that come in at certain times?
We do volunteer days at Sankofa every Saturday from 11 to 1, maybe 2. Folks can, oh man, I forgot the number. You could text us. I'll put it in the chat. We have a text line that you can send us a message on, and it will you'll get updates. That's us trying to be tech savvy, right? So yeah, I'll send you the text. I'll put the number in the chat. just for volunteerism, you can always message us on Instagram. You know, my Instagram, Duron at Duron Chavis, or at Sankofa Orchard. Or you can always go to thenaturalfestival.com. That's kind of like our go-to space. If you text subscribe to this number I'm putting in the chat now, you'll get messages that'll tell you how to where we're going to be at what day for volunteering, because the way my life is set up right now, I do all volunteer days on specific days of the week. So it's Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, right? So Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, we got about 6 different spaces across the city. So, you know, Tuesdays and Thursdays, we might fluctuate between different spaces, but on Saturday, Sankofa all day at 11 o'clock.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Yes, we have for a couple of years now been contributing, having volunteers contribute at Belmead. I understand you were there with Siobhan and all that. Bob Wright, he gets up a little too early for me. He starts those at 9 a.m. So I'm glad yours is 11 to 2.
Yeah. Bob's a good guy. I was like, man, I'm not even supposed to be up right now. I was like, I get up at it like, I'm gonna help you out, but we do ours at 11 because, you know, you get your time to get the juices flowing. I'm an older man. I don't wake up at 9 o'clock like I used to.
Bob, Duron, I was going to ask, you were out there helping with irrigation, I believe, for Belmead?
Yeah, we were helping out Bob. He asked us, he came over to Sankofa and saw what we were doing and asked us to come and help him out. I'm a big proponent of water conservation. So when you're doing urban ag spaces, like my first go-to is like, okay, how's your water set up? So we recommend doing drip irrigation using drip tape. And I just, contributed with Bob to help him get his system up and at least get the infrastructure laid down so he could just plug it up and play. So, yeah.
Fantastic. We have a question. Do you have any particular contacts in Louisa, Goochland, or Powhatan counties who are people who are also trying to implement healthy food gardens for rural communities?
So I got a friend, I think Jabari Bird is out in Louisa. I think if he's not in Louisa, he's in Floyd. I can't recall. He's in one of the two. As far as Goochland, I mean, I know Goochland / Powhatan, our good friends at Shalom, you know, they're pretty much the main act, you know, out that way. Like I said, it's really difficult. Like the rural volunteerism kind of energy is a little. There needs to be more work in that regard. And I just think it's something that we all need to try to figure out deeper ways. I feel very passionate about trying to bridge rural and urban linkages, right? Because we can't grow as much food as we need to grow in an urban environment, and like creating, you know, collaborations across, you know, those two sectors or two geospatial realities is imperative. But just finding people who have land and then that have like a place for people to stay, you know what I mean, or be when they're in those areas, because I'm not gonna act like rural Virginia doesn't have a really strong, like conservative, like really, I don't know, man. I get scared going into places. Like I rode down in Amelia County and like really, I was like, yo, I don't want to stop at any of these stores, man. I don't know what these people might be, you know, about. So, I mean, you know, and it's no shade. It's just like, I mean, safety first for me. Like I see Trump signs. I'm like, yo, these people might not like me. You know what I'm saying? Or they might not be ready for me in this area. So that's a reality we're trying to figure out how to bridge. But you know, there's I'm sure that there's a lot of good people out in the counties that are trying to do some amazing stuff. So we're just looking for them, trying to find out where our folks at.
Right. I don't get a comfortable feeling when I go by those Tea Party signs, like with the lots and lots of words and et cetera, crazy words.
Yeah. And guys out there hunt, man. So they got guns, man. And I'm not, I'm not a fool, right? Like I've seen I've seen the type of guns that folks got in some of these counties. So like, I'm being a little precautious about riding around Amelia County looking for folks that are trying to do, good things. I'm like, try to be a little precautious. I don't know. That's just me though.
But as you say, they are there, the good people doing the good things. And if you want us to, if you send us the names you did mention, then Siobhan can include them when we send the notes around and the recording around in a few days.
Yeah, for sure.
To paraphrase, I'm going to kind of paraphrase the next question a little bit. What are the challenges you find in educating people on healthier eating, since food deserts make veggies and fruit less available? Unavailable.
So that question. So we start with delicious. Is it delicious? That's. I mean, I think everybody agrees. I want something that's delicious. So when we start with any type of culinary nutrition education, I mean, we got to talk about, the nutrients and, the vitamins and, minerals, and you're getting all that you need. But the point for most folks is, does it taste delicious? Like, is it good? You know what I mean? And so we do that through like being very culturally relevant, I guess. We talk a lot about Southern foodways, African foodways, you know what I mean? And try to create, when we do our dinners, for example, like we're always like trying to express that deliciousness through farm to table lens, but also through African foodways, African American foodways, Southern foodways, and creating experiences around the food that people might not normally have access to. I mean, for example, my good friend Michael Carter, who's out in Orange County, he does like African staple crops, right? So he does like Nigerian spinach and like callaloo and moringa and just boma eggs, all types of West African crops, right? That he grows here in Virginia during the summer. And so we would incorporate those types of foods into the dinners, and it's delicious. That's the point. It's bottom line is delicious. Then we tell the stories of the foods and how, these ingredients are incorporated and what they mean. And it gives people a different relationship to it. You know what I mean? But it doesn't matter if it's not delicious. If it's not delicious, anything else that we have to say about it is out the window. So, try to start with the most delicious, with whether or not it's delicious. That's how you engage people.
Excellent point. Our XCOM member Aileen asks, first she says, so grateful for all your work, Duron. What has been your experience with local politicians, getting them to understand the importance of supporting farmers? She lives in a county that doesn't quite get the importance of supporting young local farmers.
So my reality has been Richmond, and it's been hit or miss with some folks. I mean, we have really amazing council people like Councilman Mike Jones, who's been really like an advocate for us. Cynthia Newbill has been really a strong advocate for food justice work in her district in Churchill. Think about even Ann Lambert, she's on it now. She's been, she's new to the north side, so she's been on it. Andreas Addison, his people, they've been all about it. Trying to think of who else. Catherine Jordan over in Jackson Ward has really been a big supporter of the work. She was even volunteering, like delivering raised beds during like the pandemic with us. So that was super dope. On a state level, you got a couple folks that have been really advocating. Dolores McQuinn has really been big on food access stuff. It's a challenge though, because like the way this stuff for farmers is articulated, it's like that's a whole nother talk. I'm just kind of condense it. It's like there's levels to the farmer conversation. Like ag is like the second highest budget number next to like national defense. You feel me? So when you talk about ag and like supporting local farmers, like these people don't have a conception of what local farmer is, because like there's like a lobby for like the industrial farmer, right? The big guys that's all up in the politician's ear, and that's how, you know what I mean, the money flows to like the big guys, and then slowly but surely maybe something goes to the like the smaller folks that are on the ground. And you know, don't get me started about like black farmer land loss and all that type of stuff. There's a whole nother like wave of diversion that's happening that is prohibiting for us even getting that right. So I don't know, man, it's tough. I feel like all politics are local, so if you can get, you know, your local city council people or your board of supervisors, you know, on board with a thing, you know what I mean, you can bubble it up from there. And we've got some really great examples. The Virginia Food Access Investment Fund is something that bubbled up I guess like from the grassroots, grassroots nonprofit folks kind of help push for this grant program. It's up to $50,000 that folks can get for small farmers. And you don't have to be a nonprofit. You could be a for-profit farmer in partnership with like a nonprofit and be able to get infrastructure to, you know, do some really innovative stuff, farmers markets, food processing, value added. It's a bunch of stuff that can come out of there as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. But you know, I local first, and then try to go from there.
Could you repeat the name of that grant funding?
It's called the Virginia Food Access Investment Fund, VFAIF. Yeah, I think they just closed their window for applications, but it's going to open up, hopefully, unless you know this new administration yanks the chain on it. You know, it's supposed to come back. They had got funded for the first 2 years, so hopefully this year or next year when it goes up, it'll get funded again.
Okay, I guess they're wrestling over the state budget as we speak.
Exactly.
And just I appreciate you taking it from the local level up. I'll mention that about a year ago, I remember reading some about Vilsack, I guess he's the agriculture secretary,
Yeah,
and that
secretary,
in an pretty outstanding cabinet that President Biden had assembled, Vilsack is questionable though. He had been secretary before, I think, and played into a lot of the problematic situations you were talking about a minute ago.
Right. Yeah, there was some challenges even on when he was locally. I think I can't remember where he was from, but yeah, people weren't too happy with his work on a local level. But anyway, I mean, you know, it beats a blank. I mean, there's, you know, honestly, I'm really not like, I try not to paint people with a broad stroke as good or bad. You know what I mean? I feel like, you know, the political context that we find ourselves in, you know, my experience of being at Lewis Ginner helps me like understand that all change that we're trying to do on an institutional level, like this stuff takes time, and like time is relative. So for me, like I look at a thing and be like, yo, this is going to take 10, 20 years, right? But for somebody that's like, no, it needs to happen right now, they might like feel like things are not moving. You know what I mean? But imagine like steering a cruise ship. You feel me? Like if you turn a cruise ship, like the guy that's at the helm of the cruise ship, he might be turning that little wheel like crazy, right? But you on the cruise ship, you don't even know you turning. You know what I'm saying? You don't even feel the centrifugal forces involved in you turning. You know what I mean? And then it's gonna take a minute for that thing to really turn. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta look at this stuff like from a you got to take a 30,000-foot view sometimes and be like, yo, it's moving. But what they say, the squeaky wheel gets fixed first. So we got to be like, yo, is it turning? Is it turning? Is it turning? And stay on it, because if we kind of let it let it up, then people might, get ADHD and like forget or get distracted by other things.
Well, what I see now in the chat is simply a chorus of thank you and appreciation. So that is the way I feel as well. We thank you so much for joining us tonight and for your presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all giving me a chance to dialogue with you all. I'm very honored to have been asked to share with you all. Really a big fan of the work that Sierra Club does, and I'm really excited about how our work around climate justice and ecological restoration intersects. I'm thankful that I can share space with folks that understand that this stuff is important, right? And it's not just, butterflies and, bees and pollinators. While it is that, it's there's deeper ramifications for us as human people too. It's just not all cutesy hugs and giggles. Like, this is like important for the planet and for our survival as human beings. So
Absolutely. We're trying to turn a very large cruise ship called the planet Earth. So
yes, definitely.
Excellent. And I want to say a special thanks to Kate McClory, who had the concept of inviting Duron tonight and who reached out to him. We will get your stipend to you for the Sankofa Garden, and hopefully you will see some of us there on Saturdays.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Again, like the text message, you can send us a text subscribe. You can go to Happily Natural Day website, thenaturalfestival.com. And then, follow us on social media, man. It's always great to see new folks show up in that space. Tell a friend about what we're doing too. We look forward to communing with you on the land.
Meeting on the land. Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Peace and power. Yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Certainly.
Thank so
You
much,
too.
Duron.
The rest of everything, as you probably noticed, the text, Duron put the text number in the chat at 7:47 p.m. So it's there. We will include that in our notes. And the rest of the evening on this meeting will be brief. We have some announcements, which is where you either look at your screen or listen to me reading the screen, either way that you prefer. Actually, I'm going to read it off paper. All right, so we have a lot of stuff going on, especially in April, but don't sleep on March either. The weather is getting warmer. COVID is receding for now, as Duron pointed out. So we are coming up with some things to do. Next Tuesday, March 15th, at University of Richmond at noon, there is a climate action panel, Artists and Youth as Climate Activists. This is actually taking place in the Boatwright Library, but you can see information about it on their Modeling Center site. It is free. There is pizza available, and it's an event for students, but the public is welcome to attend. And it is one of several events going on next Tuesday and Wednesday with a musical group that will be at University of Richmond next week from New Zealand. So that really does sound intriguing. Next Thursday on March 17th is Green Drinks at Blue Bee Cider. The folks who do the monthly Green Drinks events have brought them back really starting last fall. I am more comfortable now attending them. And next week's speaker is Gabby Troutman of Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Then we have a hike on March 19th at the Dutch Gap Conservation Area. You can register for that. We have on April 1st, and in fact, the first Friday of every month at noon, I'm sorry, this says at 1 to 2 p.m. Don't listen to me, read the announcement, on near Capitol Square. Details to follow. I went to the one the climate rally last Friday at noon at Capitol Square, which you see a photograph of there. So you can come out and meet fellow environmentalists and have your voice heard. The next Belle Meade workday is on Saturday, April 2nd, as is also on that same day, Richmond Century Walk. And this harkens back to our meeting last month. One of the 4 University of Richmond students who was speakers last month, Elizabeth Halaz, mentioned that she is planning a walk, a tour of century trees. And this is that. So again, watch for more details about that. On Sunday, April 3rd, we have another hike on the North Bank / Buttermilk Trail. And that starts at 9 a.m. on Sunday, April 3rd. Our next program meeting is April 12th, virtual again, and we have Dr. Scott Neubauer of Virginia Commonwealth University speaking on wetlands. Then we have another hike mid-April on April 16th. This is a rescheduled one from back in January. We were intrepidly trying to get out there at all times a year, but this time it's going to be on April 16th, Garland Dodd Park, Point of Rocks, which is a Chesterfield County park. And a tour coming up of the Tidewater Fiber Recycling Plant in Chester on Tuesday, April 19th, 10:30 a.m. You can sign up for that tour. And also mark in your calendars April 23rd. That's the Saturday of Earth Day weekend. And we are putting together a tree planting on that day. Stay tuned for details about that one. And finally, last but not least, is, well, not last or least, April 30th, we are going to be tabling at Dory Park at an all-day native plant festival. This is a big deal in the world of native plants. The keynote speaker, Doug Tallamy, is a big deal. And we're going to be there. This is our first of what we hope will be numerous tabling events. We're going to be regularly at the Dory Park Farmers Market, but this is the Native Plant Festival at Dory Park on April 30th. And now, last but not least, on May 22nd, we hope to bring back the members' picnic, the Falls of the James Group picnic. We are going to hope to get the shelter at the Carillon Pavilion Bird Park, which you might remember. We used to do these on a weeknight after the big yard sale. This year, we're going to try it on a Sunday evening, and hope that's copacetic to everyone. So that's a lot of events. We will see you hopefully at many of them, and hopefully also see you back on the second Tuesday in April for our speaker about wetlands. Thank you so much, Siobhan, for all the work you do putting these programs together, recording them, sending out the recordings. Again, it was Kate McClory who had the excellent idea to book Duron tonight. And thank you all so much for showing up tonight and at all the events we've got coming up. Have a good evening.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe, for all your work too.